az úgy most neked is. Hát most
Vagy
mondtam, hogy
megy.
recording in progress. Tökéletes. Várjál. Egy pillanat, csak mert most az escape nem működik.
A Zoom szokott ilyet csinálni.
Igen. Egy pillanatra megállítom azt, hogy stop share, és
Oké.
utána beindítom. Mm, jó, most megint megpróbáljuk a share screen-t. Elnézést a technikai problémákért. Share screen. Oké. Most megvan osztva?
Igen, látható.
Oké. És most is?
Uh-huh.
Jó,
Teljes
szuper,
képernyő van.
tökéletes. Na, most sajnálom gyerekek, de most átváltok angolra. Um, és akkor kezdjük. So, hello, switching to English quickly. Well, not quickly, for the whole thing, I'm afraid. Actually, one more thing. Bocsánat, csak itt a oldalt látom az összes kis videót, és azt elveszem egy pillanatra. Right, now we're starting. Um, so hello everyone. First off, thank you so much to Gabor for inviting me to talk at this summit, and thank you to the translators as well for allowing me to do it in English, which it will be a lot easier for me to talk about this topic in English. And as you might be able to hear from my voice, I do have COVID at the minute, so I apologize if I need to take some breaks to cough or to drink my tea, but I'm hoping I'll be able to get through the whole presentation without losing my voice. So let's get straight to it. So today I'll be talking about competitions as training tools. Before we get into that, a little bit about me. So as we've heard, my name is Zita. Hello. Um, my interest in scent work first actually began in Hungary. I was working in academia doing some research at ELTE, at the Etológia Tanszék, where I did some research on search behaviors in dogs, as well as comparing the olfactory abilities of different breeds, even to wolves. After that year that I spent in Hungary, I moved to the UK in 2014 to pursue my master's degree in animal behavior and welfare. And I've been here in the UK for the past 10 years since then. I've been working mostly with kenneled dogs, working as a shelter behaviorist, still using scent work quite regularly, but more from a welfare perspective of as a form of enrichment to improve the lives of the kenneled dogs in the shelter. I returned to scent detection as a sport and as a competitive endeavor with my own dog during the pandemic. And that's when I really fell back in love with it, just as a dog sport and seeing how it can be progressed um, and how wonderful competitions in the world of competitions are. I became a certified scent work instructor through the College of Scent Dogs here in the UK. And then I spent a few years mentoring under various other dog trainers, mostly retired police dog handlers, helping them with their training sessions and their clients. And this past year, I founded my own business, which is ScentQuest, um, where I train pet owners for scent detection. I run competitions and enrichment sessions as well as continuing to compete with my own dog, who you can see there in the picture. She's a lovely Staffy Cross, 9 years old now. All right, so what are we talking about today? So when Gabor first invited me to talk on this summit, we had a little brainstorm of what topics might be interesting, of what perspectives I might be able to bring that might be interesting for you all, the audience. And we got to talking about the topic of competitions and how the world of competitions is just starting to take off in Hungary and how interesting that is, especially when we compare it to maybe some of the competitions here in the UK, where that world has existed for quite a while, and we've got various national organizations with thousands and thousands of participants. So, what I want to talk about today is why should we even bother with competitions? What are they good for? Isn't it just a really stressful assessment that's just going to stress people out and not be any fun? Some of those key challenges to get over with competitions. And I touched on this a bit already, but we'll look into it a little bit more of what different cultural perspectives uh, might bring into how different handlers view competitions and what they can get out of them. I want to give some examples from two specific UK scentwork competition styles. So I mentioned that there's a few organizations here. There's probably five or six big national ones and countless other much smaller ones. I've picked out two of the national ones, Nosework Games and the National Nosework Association, to just give you a little feel of how different they can be and what they can bring to you as trainers or as instructors to really progress your training and to sort of improve the mindset of how you're working with your dog. So we'll finish up just by looking at how we're able to use competitions to develop our training plans and progress with our dogs. All right, so why are competitions such powerful training tools? They're not just tests, they're opportunities for us to see where we can go with our training. So first of all, they're realistic scenarios. So a lot of times when we're just training, if you're training on your own or if you're training in a class, you know where the hides are. It's not a blind search, so to speak. It's a familiar area where you roughly know what you're doing. Your dog has an expectation of how you're going to act, of how you're going to feel, and how the whole search is going to go. Whereas when you're doing a competition, it's much more similar to a real world detection environment. You don't know where things are. The dog's in a new place. There's all sorts of distractions they might not be used to. The hides might be more challenging, more problem solving. And of course, the whole context is different because all of a sudden, you as the handler, you're under a time pressure, you're stressed, your whole emotional state is a different context to what the dog is used to. And now they're being asked to work in that context as opposed to uh, the training class context. Competitions are also a great way of motivating progress. So when we have clear goals that we're working towards, or even just a structured event on a certain date, that can help us sustain enthusiasm. So if we know that, oh, a month from now, I want to take part in this competition, I want to be able to achieve X, Y, and Z, that's going to keep you a lot more motivated with your training to keep going to be able to reach that goal than if you're just wandering around aimlessly without any sort of goal in mind of what you want to achieve. And lastly, of course, it's great for handler development. I mentioned this on the first point as well. But when you're training with your trainer or in a class, they're always there sort of guiding you. They're, pointing out little hints like, oh, don't forget to hold your leash this way, or oh, did you see your dog do that body language? And they're guiding you through the process. When you're taking part in a competition, you have the opportunity to independently implement everything you learned and see how much of that you've actually taken in. How much are you able to perform on your own without someone holding your hand and guiding you, just relying on yourself and your dog? Right. Now, of course, there's some key challenges, not just in competitions, but even getting people to go to competitions, right? The way we view them, it can be stressful, a high pressure environment. All of a sudden, we're being judged, we're being scored, there's a time pressure, you're in a new place. And all of this can negatively impact your performance. So we've seen it countless times that you do your searches perfectly during training, you're great at home, but as soon as you go into this competition environment, everything doesn't quite go to plan. So part of that is your own reaction to being in that high pressure environment. And part of that is, like I said before, your dog picking up on the fact that you're stressed and this is a different context to what they're used to. Now, this fact that it's negatively impacts our performance at times can create a fear of failure or a fear of comparison to other people taking part in a competition. And that might discourage handlers from even entering a competition in the first place because they're so stressed that because of the stress, they'll perform poorly that they don't even try. This focus solely on scores and rankings and how we're doing, that can cause us to overlook opportunities for learning, which is ultimately what competitions are. And this tendency towards comparison is also likely to cause handlers to not be as aware of their own individual successes. Every single one of us has a dog that is completely different to another person's dog. And it's not always fair to compare them on the same level. Um, so, for example, if we imagine, a little toy poodle, a rescue who's been abused, they're 10 years old, they've just come out of the shelter, and they're terrified of everything. And they come to a competition and they put on their brave face, they're very confident, and they do the search and they find one hide out of five, right? That's an amazing accomplishment for that dog. But is it fair to then compare that dog to the 2-year-old border collie who's been purebred and has been doing scent work its entire life and it found five hides and it wins first place? You know, the mindset of, oh no, I got last place and I only found one might diminish your awareness of the fact that actually this dog did an amazing job coming out, trying and finding that one hide. So these are some of the key challenges in comparison in competitions. And it's natural. The point of a competition is to compete, but it's important to not let that competition take away our awareness of our own individual successes. So I touched on this a little bit earlier, and that there can be cultural perspectives that are different on how we view competitions and how we come away from them viewing ourselves. Now, you probably noticed in the beginning that I was speaking Hungarian. I have a Hungarian name, but I am doing this presentation in English. Um, so I grew up in the United States and I've lived in the UK for the past decade, but my family is Hungarian. So I do have a bit of an insight into both of these different cultures and how they view competitions or assessments or testing in general. So in some Eastern European countries, competitions and tests, they're viewed as very formal assessments, very structured, very focused on precision, on achieving high standards, and that standard that you achieved, that tells you some sort of information about your value as a person and how you should view yourself and who you are. On the other hand, in the UK and in some other English-speaking countries, particularly with dog sports, there's much more emphasis on this is a fun thing for you to do with your dog. Yes, there are standards, but let's view those standards as a form of individual progression rather than having it be some sort of indication of your value as a dog owner or as a dog team or your dog's worth and so forth. Now, having seen both of these approaches, I think the best way is to balance both of them together, take a bit from each. So it's important to have standards and to want to reach those goals and to achieve to a high standard, but it's also important to actually enjoy it, right? We're not getting any money from doing scent work competitions. Our livelihood doesn't depend on it. We're doing it to have a good time with our dogs. But we can still strive to reach a high standard. We can still have goals, and we don't need to go completely to the side of everyone gets a participation award just for turning up, right? So we can still want to achieve a high standard of searching while still enjoying the process and having a bit of fun with it and recognizing that actually if we don't do the best, if we're not first place, that doesn't mean that we're a terrible team and everything is terrible and we are not worthy of any success or accomplishment. A bit of an exaggeration there, but I hope you see where I'm coming from. So, oh, is this not going? There we go. So, just for the next bit, I'd like to talk a bit about some of the different styles of scent work competitions that exist in the UK. So I mentioned in the beginning there are lots of different organizations, 5 or 6 national ones. Um, Oh, sorry, someone's just entered the chat. Let me try and admit them. Sorry, one moment, because I can't see my mouse. There, admit. Hello, welcome, and back to play. There we go. Sorry about that. So, like I was saying, there's a few different larger national organizations as well as some smaller ones. I've picked out two that I want to talk to you about today. And I chose these two for a few reasons. One of them is that these are the ones that I compete with my own dog. The second one is these are the two that I am certified as a judge to host and judge other people on. And thirdly, because they're very different from each other, but also possibly from other types of competitions that you might have encountered already. And I think it might be a good opportunity to look at different styles of competitions that might exist. So let me just take a quick drink. My voice is holding up surprisingly well. So the first one I'd like to talk about is called Nosework Games. This was developed by Marie Poole here in the UK. She's a retired police dog handler. She was a police dog handler for over 30 years. And after she retired, she started training just pet dogs and scent work. And she noticed that there were lots of dogs that were competing at quite a high level, but were really lacking a lot of the foundation skills, which is surprisingly common, actually. So what she set up was this series of competitions called Nosework Games, where it specifically tests foundation skills. So there's 12 different games, and each one focuses on a single area of nosework, a single foundational skill, right? So these aren't large, 15-minute searches in a huge warehouse that you have to do. It's literally breaking nosework down into what are the basic foundational skills you need to be successful. And each of those is a game that you can compete on. So during a trial, oh, sorry. So there's 8 different levels of difficulty within nosework games. Within each trial, so a trial would be like a single competition. The organizer would pick 3 out of the 12 games for the competitors to compete in. Um, I'll give you a few examples of some of these games. I've picked out 4, just so you can see what I mean by how they test the foundational skills and how it might be a bit different to what you're used to. So the first one, for example, is a game called Distance. This tests the dog's ability to work independently from the handler. It tests their ability to indicate at a distance from the handler. So many of my clients, when they first start out and we're training, the dog is really cued into what the handler is doing. And they're almost taking more information from the handler than they are from the odor itself. And they're missing that foundational skill of the dog being able to work to the odor without necessarily having input from the handler. So within this game, the handler must stay behind a line while the dog searches rows or groups of items that are at a distance. Now, depending on the level, the distance is going to be further and further. So at the first level, distance can be up to 5 meters away, whereas at level 8, they can be as far as 12 meters away. So I'll show you a little video. This was about maybe 4 years ago with my own dog. This is a level 1 game. And you can see I'm meant to stand behind that blue cone there, and we've got these items away at a distance. Now, as you're watching this, you can try and have a think of how your dog would react to this. Would they be able to go to that far distance? And, granted, level 1, it's not that far, it's only 5 meters. But still, you'll see in a second, she gets distracted by something there, just there. And she's able to come back into the search without having a handler right there, tasking her to go back and search. And you'll see she's alerting there, and that's correct. Right, so at this level, the item is then taken out before the dog is sent back in for the next round. Here's a great view of my legs. All right, we'll watch her do another one. And you can see it's a very simple setup. And the idea is that it's meant to be simple because we're just testing that one foundational skill. We're not also testing and any other foundational skills. It's just this one we're working on. I'll move it on. So there were a few more hides, but we don't need to watch them all. So hopefully that gives you an idea of that game. Another game for within Nosework games is called Needle in a Haystack. So this tests the team's ability to work methodically in a chaotic environment, so a very cluttered environment. You can see a picture here. This is a level 1 needle in a haystack, so it's not too cluttered, but you can see there's some hanging items. There's items that are layered on top of each other, stacked together. So there's that little house there that the dog would need to go into and search behind a box that's in there. So it's testing whether your dog is able to respond to tasking in a cluttered area. Are they able to do a detailed search when there's lots of smaller items packed together? Um, are they able to indicate in an unusual body position? Right? So are they able to go into that house and maybe stick their head behind a box to indicate where you might be, outside of the house facing a different direction? Are they still able to do that? Another example of a game is called All Clear. So this tests a very, very crucial handler skill, which is the handler's ability to call an area clear once you've searched it. So very often in competitions, especially if there's an unknown number of hides, which in this case there is, handlers have a tendency to just run out the time because, oh, maybe there might be one more that I haven't found yet. Let me just use all of the time to search it. But actually, to be an efficient handler and a good systematic searcher, you want to be able to search the whole area confidently and be able to say, I found two, three, four, however many hides. I've searched the whole area. Even though there's time left, I'm going to call this clear. And that's what this game focuses on. So in this one, you earn points, yes, for finding all the hides, but also for not letting the time just run out and calling the area clear once you found all of them. That's a very crucial skill that a lot of people um, don't recognize because it is so easy to just keep searching till the time runs out because who knows, maybe you missed one. But that shouldn't be your mindset. Your mindset should be, no, I have searched everywhere and I found what there is to find. Yes, I've said that. Right, and just another one I wanted to mention quickly. I'm a big fan of this one. It's called Hidden Treasure. It tests the dog's ability to recognize the odor when it's underneath different materials. So we know that odor presents differently to the dog when it's buried or if it's submerged in water, especially when it's at different depths. So in this game, the odor might be under some gravel or straw, or maybe shredded paper, or at the higher levels, maybe soil or sand, or even water or wood chips. And depending on the level, that would determine what material it's underneath, but also at what depth. So at a lower level, it might be under maybe 5 centimeters of gravel, whereas at a higher level, it might be, you know, 20 centimeters of sand. Um, of course, there would be a different amount of time that the odor would sit in that before we set the dog there. But you can see how this really tests the dog ability to perceive the odor when it's presenting differently. So I've got a quick video here as well. So this is searching in some gravel.
Very nice.
And again, you can see the setup is super simple. We're not even necessarily testing searching abilities. It's more of a lineup, but we're testing that foundational skill of recognizing the odor from a different substrate.
Good girl. Very nice. Very clever.
So, a few interesting things about Nosework games. First off, there's no subjective scoring. So there's no opinion-based judging of how you worked as a handler, how you were as a team, of your dog's confidence. It's all objective based on your number of finds. So for each find, you get 10 points. For each wrong alert, you lose 5 points. And with some of the games, obviously, there's an extra element, like with the clearing, the all clear game. If you clear the area correctly, then you get an extra 10 points for that as well. We saw in all of these very simple environments. There's no need to rent out a complex venue or to find difficult search areas because we are just testing those foundations. And what that allows us to do actually is to make it more fun in a way for the dogs and the handlers to take a bit of the pressure off. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any videos of, or photos of some of the ones we've done, but we can do quite fun themed ones, Christmas themed ones or an Easter egg hunt themes, and take a bit of that pressure off of the handlers and make it a bit more fun. As far as rewards, again, it's highly reinforcing these games for handlers because competitors receive rosettes for each game. So remember, for each competition, there's 3 games. And for each one, you can receive a rosette for first to third place. And for overall, across all 3 games, the total score as well. So potentially, if you do very well, you could go home from a competition with 4 rosettes. That's a lot of competitors. It's very motivating for them, and it's a good goal for them to work towards. The scores are also included in a league table for nosework games that are run across the whole country, and they have a big award ceremony at the end of the year based on that league table. There's also an option for achieving skills awards in each games. So despite my encouragement, some people are still very averse to competing against others, but they still want to have goals to work towards. So within nosework games, you can try to achieve a skill award in each game, which means you do the game at that level, and if you receive a perfect score, so you find all the hides and you don't have any wrong alerts, and you do it within the allotted time, then you receive a skill award for that game. And that's quite motivating for some people. Right. More importantly, though, having these different foundations broken down into different games, it makes it very clear to competitors what skills they might be lacking or what they need to improve on. So, for example, sometimes some of my clients will say, "Oh, I hate distance. That's the worst game. I don't want to play that one." That makes it clear in my head of, oh, that's what we need to work on in training. That's what we need to improve on. And very quickly, once we do that, that switches to, oh, distance is my favorite game. That's so much fun. And then we move on to the next one that they don't like because that's what they need to work on. For more self-aware competitors, obviously, they recognize that on their own without such strong emotions. All right. Quick break. So the next Scentwork organization I want to talk about is the National Nosework Association, the NNA. So national, of course, referring to the UK. So these trials focus on progressively challenging teams in a wide variety of diverse locations. So they really put an emphasis on going to lots and lots of different places, exposing your dog to searching in novel environments that they wouldn't expect. So think of schools, museums, stables, farms, helicopter storage places, literally the craziest places, paintball locations, literally anything you can imagine, really. The NNA encourages you to do trials in losing my words in these wide variety of locations. But before you can even start trialing at these locations, you must first pass an odor recognition test, an ORT, for each level. Now, I think I was speaking briefly to Gabor about these of whether these exist in Hungary or not, and I think he was saying that they do in some places, but not so much in others. And I think it's a really valuable skill And it's a progression route in its own right. Um, because despite looking very simple, so an odor recognition test, it's essentially just a lineup of containers, and your dog needs to search each container and indicate which one has the odor, which in theory sounds simple, but it's actually a very difficult task for both the dog and the handler to do it in a systematic, calm, focused way. It's also great for teams who are a little bit stressed about competing against others because for an ORT, you are just working against yourself, against your own training, trying to progress to higher levels. So I've just shown a few of the levels here. So these are the first four levels within the NNA. I know it looks a bit complicated. Don't worry about reading all of this. I just want to go through the basics of some of them. So at the foundation level, which is the first level, you're just expected to find one hide in a row of 8 containers that are in a line. Right? That's relatively straightforward. That is, a pure odor recognition test where we are just testing, does the dog know what it's looking for? But as you move up, it becomes a much more skilled and regimented task that takes a lot more training. So you can see that by the enhanced level, that fourth level there on the right, you're already asked to find 2 hides within 25 containers that are in that T shape there, with 5 distraction odors in there as well. Now, as we move up, this all seems doable so far, but then we move up to the next 4 levels there, and already by excellent, you're asked to find 3 hides in 30 containers where you're having 5 distraction odors that could be literally anything, including food. So, you could have 5 pots with sausages and cheese and cat litter and sheep's wool, and your dog's expected to move past those and still indicate on their odor and sniff every single pot and do it in that strange shape. And it just gets harder and harder there. You can see moving up to the highest current level, which is Supreme, you've got 40 containers to search with an unknown number of hides. It could be a fully blank run where there's not even any odor there. It could be buried hides, it could be water hides. And again, with an unknown number of distractions, that could be anything. So that's quite a challenge, but it's a nice goal and a nice route of progression, moving through these 8 stages, gradually step by step, having a goal to work towards each time. Yeah, so I just wanted to show that as its own thing almost of how ORTs can help progress our training. But back to the trials themselves. So once you've completed an ORT for the level that you want to trial at, again, I mentioned that trials are held in unusual locations, and they consist of multiple elements. So each trial has a combination of an interior search, an exterior search, a vehicle search, and a selection test, varying slightly depending on what level you're competing at, but in general, these are the 4 elements. And there is some subjective scoring in this, unlike in nosework games. So yes, you get points for any correct finds you have, but there's also some subjective scoring for things like team confidence, which is how well can you read your dog? How well is your dog responding to your tasking? How committed is your dog to staying within an odor, and how good are you at recognizing that? There's also area coverage. How efficiently and how aware of it are you, sorry, how efficiently are you covering your area? And how aware are you of all the different bits you might have missed that you need to go back to? That sort of thing. And of course, the indication. So we saw the levels in the ORT. They're the same for the trials, obviously. But I think we haven't had any dogs reach past the elite stage yet. They're still working through it. But I think the spirit stage is coming soon. And again, these progress really nicely in a nice, manageable way that teams are able to work through it. but to reaching quite a high standard. So at foundation, we're starting pretty easy with just 2-minute searches looking for one hide. So you'd have a 2-minute interior search looking for one hide, then a 2-minute exterior search looking for one hide. There's no vehicle searches yet at foundation, and then you'd have a selection test. Meanwhile, working up to elite, you're doing 15-minute searches with an unknown number of hides, um, including vehicle searches, and that's quite a lot for a dog to work up to. But if you follow the progression and use the path of competitions to guide your training plan, then that's very achievable. So these are just some photos from trials held in different places. So you can see there's a dog in a helicopter there. That I think that was in an old prison. There's some horse stables, various museums, dormitories. I think that spaniel's sniffing a tank, and schools, all sorts of different environments. Now, the reason that I picked the NNA as one of the competition styles I wanted to talk about is not so much about how the competitions are run, but the various rewards that they give out that encourage people to set goals for themselves, to track their progress, and to continue with their training. So, within each competition trial, I said that there's a few elements, right? So there's the interior, exterior vehicle selection. For each of these elements, if you find all the hides, you can earn a badge. I don't think my camera's on, but if it is, I'm holding a badge. But I don't think it is. So once you get 3 badges in each element, you can then achieve a skills award, which is a fun shiny metal badge. I'll show photos of these in a minute. So these are all little things that are really motivating for people, and it gives them clear cut out goals of what they're working towards. Once you earn 3 badges in each of the elements, you have to move up to the next level. So you always have to continue challenging yourself. You can't just stay in a nice, comfortable level where you're always getting the badges, you're always winning, you're always doing the best that you can, right? You always have to challenge yourself and progress yourself as a team to continue on to the next level. There's also special synergy badges for really exceptional searches. So this is the kind of search where the judge watches you and your dog, and at the end of it, they're just, wow, it was beautiful. You and the dog were almost connected as one single being, moving around in perfect flow, in perfect synergy. And it's just one of those exceptional searches. And I really, really like that badge because yeah, it's nice to get a medal. And obviously, there's medals for first and second place because it is a competition. But at the end of the day, your first and second place is only showing that you were better than whoever was there on that day. You might have had actually a really rubbish search that didn't look good at all. You weren't as connected with your dog. You just happened to score more points than everyone else that was there. That doesn't mean nearly as much as actually earning a synergy badge, which shows that you had an exceptional search. You really did something worthwhile and beautiful. And, it may be a case that during a competition, you earn a synergy badge, but you don't get first and second place. And that's one of the reasons I really like this setup, that it takes out different elements and really hones in on the successes that might otherwise be lost in our own silly mindsets of, oh, I only got, 5th place or whatever. I didn't even get a medal. And this allows us to acknowledge that, but hold on a minute. I got a badge in this. I got a synergy in this. I got a good score in this. So I'll come back to that in a minute. Oh, yes. And of course, there's a league table as well for the NNA, just like Nosework Games, both for cumulative overall scores throughout the years and also separated out by different breed groups. So here's some pictures of what I was talking about so you can visualize it. So you've got the fabric badges that you can earn for each element. Um, and then the medal badges that you can get for getting 3 badges, and of course the um, medals that you get for first or second place. And up in the right there, I've got an example of the score sheet, just so you can visualize that as well and see how that might look. And I mean, you can see how, some people are displaying these and really showing the scent work journey that they've been on with their dog through these competitions, through the different levels, rather than just, hanging a single rosette up on the wall, showing that on this one day I did this one thing, hooray. It's really showing the whole journey, that whole path that you and your dog have worked through to get to where you are, to accomplish that level, and to move up to the next stage. And I mentioned the synergy badges a second ago. So this is what they look like. And you can see um, that people do value it a lot more than the actual first place and second place medals. Uh, you know, it's it's highlighting what competitions should be about, of you striving to do your very best and acknowledging your individual progression, rather than comparing yourself in rankings of where you stand with the people that you were competing against that day. All right, so um, by breaking down um, these scoring sections into smaller components with various rewards for each of them, different successes can be acknowledged while still making clear that there's room for improvement in other areas, right? So it's still providing a training progression plan. It's still recognizing that you can do better, that there's still areas to improve your training, all while still taking that little bit of, hey, you did a good job on this. You should still be proud of this. So it gives us clear goals to work towards, clear progression to continue on. There's some dog footsteps in the background there. So just to finish up, a little summary of what I was just saying of how we can use competitions to develop tailored training plans, how to use them as diagnostic tools to further our training plans. So it allows us to not just identify areas of improvement, but also recognize our strengths and acknowledge them. It allows us to focus on skill development and not get caught up just in the results. Just like I was saying before, it doesn't matter if you got first place, if you had a rubbish search, and just like it doesn't matter if you got fifth place, but you had the best search of your life. Focus on what you did as an individual and focus on what skills you need to develop from there without getting caught up in the results. So use your competition performance to guide future sessions. You can analyze the specific challenges you faced because it's not the same as in training, because you're in a different mindset. Your dog is reacting to you differently, again, because of those stress levels, because you're in a new place. And you're able to then analyze how those changes affect your performance and then modify that in your training. And lastly, it allows you to set personalized goals. Measure your progress against your own benchmarks. This is what I've been saying the past few minutes now, rather than competing with others. And most importantly, track your improvements over multiple competitions, but celebrate the small wins on that journey. So I think that is all. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can see my email there. Also at Instagram and on Facebook at ScentQuest Dogs.